Thank you, Farhan. So we want to transition to closing statements to give you both 1 minute at a time to end this. I want to break the fourth wall a little bit and just say, like, this has been so much fun having this conversation with both of you, and I know that both of you have played along and had a lot of fun and taken, the extreme of your position. I think it's just really powerful. And looking at the chat and what's going on there, I think people have seen this conversation as really refreshing and different and really enriching, because you two have really put a lot of critical thought into these positions. So this has just been a ton of fun, just breaking the fourth wall. But so with that, to bring it back in. All right, I'd like to give the two candidates 1 minute for closing statements. So for this one, we'll have Jerry. You can kick it off with your closing statement.
Sure. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think as fun as it is to debate flat versus hierarchical, I think the most critical thing is to know, it's less about which style and to know when to use which style. And obviously, I think if a team is small, then you're able to get away with having a flat organizational style. As the teams scale or as the companies scale, I think a hierarchical style makes a lot more sense and provides a lot more flexibility. More importantly, if you have diversity of talent and not everybody is as good as everybody else, or to Farhan's point, if not, everybody is a house engineer or a Shopify engineer or a Google Facebook engineer, and you end up in instances where the managers are more capable than the individuals, then I think hierarchical organizations actually provide for much more efficiency in that particular regard. But even if you do have a ubiquity of style and everybody has fairly comparable skills, I still think that hierarchical organizations allow scale in an easier fashion, as long as you have effective managers that are open, transparent, and allow the facilitation and also the transference of ideas up the chain. Lastly, it's very important to have managers be multipliers rather than adding cruft into the ecosystem or just basically being dead weight. A good manager is a good multiplier. And so if they have 4 people on their team, then the net output will be more than 4 or 5, whatever it is. A bad manager is essentially just add overhead. And in that particular regard, yes, a hierarchical organization wouldn't be as efficient if the managers within that organization aren't as efficient. And so ultimately, it just comes down to hiring good people, whether it's a flat organization or a hierarchical one.
Thank you, Jerry. Farhan, your closing remarks.
Cool. Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I think that, and Patrick, I think that there's a point there that I agree with Jerry, which is that you have to choose the right structure based on what you're trying to build at the time. What I would say, though, is I would tend more to start with flat for as long as possible and likely push it much farther than most people would, because I do feel that people automatically move to some other desired state much too early. So the idea that, hey, after I have 10 engineers, I probably need a manager, or after I have 50, I probably need a director, I think is misguided. Of course, people matter. Not everyone wants to or feels like they want to be capable to or have like 100 direct reports or so. I remember talking to the VP engineering at Twitter. He had 80 direct reports before it split. I think most people should try to push it farther than they are comfortable with because of the velocity increase, because of the ability to have everybody working on the product versus people trying to manage the people who are working on the product. And so my default view is go flat, try to figure out, of course, have great people. Like everybody wants great people, easier to say than to do, but to have a flatter structure than a hierarchical one whenever that trade-off comes about. And then of course, as you have to break it off, even for me at 120, I had to break the model and start putting in more management. But I think it's different for not just situation, but different per person, and depending on what company you're in. And I think we should push it much farther to flatter versus if you do a survey, it's probably 99% hierarchical and 1% flat in the world. I think it should be much more, the pendulum should swing much more towards flat for the next little while we figure out what that structure could mean.
Jerry, Farhan, thank you both so much for your sportsmanship and for having fun with us while diving into such a critical topic. I mean, there's so many interesting lessons at the extremes of these strategies. And I think you two did an incredible job about really pulling out some of the most powerful and interesting considerations and essentials of pursuing these different strategies. And just appreciated your final remarks about choosing the one that works best for your situation and your strategy. And I think that's like a very powerful way to end and close the debate. Now it's up for the world of engineering leaders to decide. So
Thanks so much, Patrick, for hosting.